Put your clothes on, I commanded. My gaze then shifted to the wolf next to Serena on the bed. Joshua, I recalled. And you? I said with a low snarl. Get out. Now. Joshua didn't need telling twice. He scrambled off the bed, hastily and fearfully. Still, Serena remained covered in the sheet, using it as a flimsy shield to hide her nakedness. Cora couldn't resist a disdainful snort. Well, aren't you just the picture of grace? She said to Serena. The Lycan King himself asks you to put some fucking clothes on, and here you are, clutching a sheet to your bare chest like a lost pup. My head snapped towards Cora. If you don't want to end up as a decoration on the wall like your beta, I warned, learn to control your fucking tongue. Cora wisely chose silence. A nod was her only reply. Turning back to the room, I cast a commanding look around. Give her some space, I instructed. One by one, the wolves left the room. Then I turned to Derek. Lead the way to your conference room, I ordered. I have an announcement to make. Derek was clearly puzzled by my unexpected behavior towards Serena. He could only nod numbly. Of course, Your Majesty. Then he pointed at Serena. What about Serena? Would she be joining us? I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I let my gaze drift back to Serena. Her nudity was still hidden behind the sheet. Finally, I met her gaze with contempt in my eyes. She can come, I agreed, when she's decent. Derek led me to his conference room. As we walked, he was still visibly trying to understand my earlier display of protectiveness towards Serena. Hesitantly, he led me to the secluded corner in the conference room. Once the door shut behind us, he cleared his throat. If I may ask, Your Majesty, what is this about? Derek finally managed to ask. You rarely grace my humble abode, and when you do, it's certainly not to intervene in my personal affairs. My eyes narrowed in a way that made Derek wriggle. Let's just say, I said, certain recent events have come to my attention. Derek's face paled considerably. Events? He stammered. He panicked. What events are you referring to, Your Majesty? You mustn't know everything. I said curtly. Now shall we? I gestured for him to take a seat at the large mahogany table that dominated the center of the room. He sat in a chair, his gaze shifting between me and the other wolves who sat around us. I leaned back in the chair. After the banquet tonight, I finally spoke. I will be taking Serena home. Derek's jaw nearly hit the floor. Home? But Your Majesty, he sputtered. King Arden, he continued. A woman like Serena, she's not suitable for you. An Omega, especially one of such questionable repute, would tarnish your reputation. Don't worry yourself about that, Derek. Her place is with me. My behavior defied any logic he could comprehend. Why would the Lycan King choose to sully himself with an Omega who's a prostitute? But Your Majesty, he began, taking someone like Serena? Think of the headline, the scandal. A Lycan King with a... He struggled to find a decent term, finally settling on a prostitute. His concern for my reputation seemed less about genuine worry and more about a desperate attempt to keep something hidden. There are far better options available to you, Derek continued with eagerness. Stronger, more suitable companions. Before I could respond, the door to the conference room creaked open, and a young woman waltzed into the room. Her red dress clung to her curves, leaving little to the imagination.
Ah, Mirabeth, Derek greeted.
This is the Lycan King, Arden. Mirabeth is one of my most prized possessions. My gaze remained fixed on Mirabeth as Derek gave me reasons as to why I should take Mirabeth with me instead. Her beauty was undeniable, yet I felt nothing for her. Enough! I yelled. Derek, sensing the anger in me, hastily backtracked. Of course, Your Majesty, he stammered. My eyes met Derek's head-on. I've made my decision. You can take your prized possession and leave, I commanded. The banquet awaits. Derek's face was filled with anger and humiliation, but he wisely chose not to argue. With a curt nod, he ushered Mirabeth out of the room. And once again, the door slammed shut behind them. Serena's povey pulled on a simple dress, fumbling with the buttons on my dress. My mind, however, was far from the present. It drifted back to a time long ago, to a woman named Nana Willow. She was an old she-wolf that had been my haven while growing up. Just then, a single precious memory surfaced. Nana Willow held out a small, intricately carved wooden box and pressed it into my hands. "This is for you, little one," she had said with affection. "A gift from your parents. They wished for you to open it on your 20th birthday. Remember, Serena, this box must never be damaged. It holds great importance, and any harm to it will bring great disaster to the wolf pack." The box was tucked away in a hidden pocket of my meager belongings, and my heart ached at the memory. 3 months. That's how long until my 20th birthday. 3 months until I could understand whatever secrets within the box. But would I even survive that long? Just then Derek entered my room, jolting me back to reality. "So," he said with sarcasm, "all dressed up and ready to play princess for the Lycan King, are we?" I remained silent, refusing to give him the satisfaction of a response. He walked further into the room, eyeing me from head to toe. "Don't get any ideas, Serena," he sneered. "Just because the Lycan King took a fancy to you for a moment, doesn't mean he'll believe a word you say about me." I wanted to talk back, but I quickly swallowed my words. Now wasn't the time for a fight. I couldn't risk Derek lashing out. I wouldn't dream of it. I lied, my voice barely above a whisper. He let out a chuckle. "Wise choice." His gaze shifted. "And don't forget," he continued, "I still have your parents' things. Try anything funny, and they might just accidentally get misplaced." His threats weren't empty. I wanted to scream, but I held it back, forcing myself to nod silently in submission. Derek seemed satisfied with my reaction. With a final glare, he turned and headed back towards the door. As he reached for the knob, he looked over his shoulders. "Don't be late. The Lycan King wouldn't like to be kept waiting." Serena's the door slammed shut behind him, leaving me alone in the silence. Tears welled up in my eyes. I felt utterly powerless, trapped in a cage. I couldn't let Derek break me. I would survive. And when I turned 20, when I unlocked the secrets of the box, I would find a way to my freedom. A way to avenge my parents and escape the clutches of this monstrous man. It was a long shot, a desperate hope, but it was all I had. Until then, I would play the part of the meek servant, bide my time, and wait for my chance. I straightened the simple dress one last time, forcing myself to take a deep breath. Tears had left their mark on my cheeks, but I quickly wiped them away. Stepping out of the room, I made my way towards the conference room. My heart pounded as I walked, only because I wanted to meet King Arden with utmost composure. As I entered, my gaze met Arden. He stood by the window with his back to me. He turned upon hearing the door open, wearing an indifferent look on his face. "Ready?" he asked curtly. I nodded silently, unsure of what else to say. There was no warmth in his eyes, no ounce protectiveness he had displayed earlier. "Good," he said curtly. "The banquet starts soon. And I'll be taking you home with me after that." My heart skipped. "Taking me home with you?" I stammered. "But why?" "That's not a question you need to ask," he stated. "You should know by now that my decisions are not to be questioned." He paused. "Besides," he continued, "you did quite well rejecting Derek in front of everyone. You were almost eager to, weren't you?" I opened my mouth to speak, to plead my case, but before I could utter a word, the door opened. It was Cora. "The banquet is about to start, Your Majesty," she said, before glancing at me spitefully. Arden gave a curt nod, completely ignoring my attempt to speak. He turned and headed towards the door. "Lead the way then," he commanded. There was nothing left for me to do but follow. What had I gotten myself into? Arden's offer of protection was confusing, to say the least. Was it genuine concern? Or was there something else at play? What did Arden have planned out for me? At the banquet, all I could think about was the uncertainty of my future. I moved through the banquet like a ghost, and when it was finally time to leave, fright gripped me. Arden offered no explanation, no reassurance. As he ushered me out of the hall and into a waiting car, he gestured for me to enter. Then I climbed into the back seat. Arden slid in afterwards and slammed the door shut. The car was as silent as a graveyard. I stole a glance at Arden through the mirror in front, and all I could see was the disgust he had for me in his eyes. Even without Derek's earlier warning ringing in my ears, I knew that exposing Derek's brutality might not earn me any favors. Instead, it might increase the disgust Arden already has for me. I gulped hard. It seemed the safest course of action was silence. We sped throughout the night for hours. Finally, the car slowed down and he stopped the car at a grand entrance. We were here, the Lycan King's pack house. Arden got down from the car and stood beside it. He offered no assistance as I emerged out of the car. We walked together in silence. As we walked, groups of wolves couldn't help but stare. They're widening at the sight. Alpha Arden, a young man stepped forward. Thorn, this is Serena, Arden replied curtly. She will be staying here with Iz. The man, who I assumed was Arden's beta by the deference in his posture, raised an eyebrow. Here at the pack house, Alpha? Apologies, Alpha, he stammered. But rumors have been swirling. Is she your mate? Absolutely not, he said with disdain. She's nothing more than a slave I acquired. Find her a modest room. She'll continue serving here. Thorn was disappointed, but he quickly masked it with a respectful nod. As you command, Alpha. He turned towards me. Follow me, Serena. I'll show you to your quarters. I was assigned a modest, furnished room. My duties were minimal, mostly helping with small tasks in the kitchen and tending to the gardens. One night, during a full moon, I heard noises outside. Unable to ignore the unsettling feeling, I crept out of bed. Drawn towards the source of the noise, I tiptoed down the quiet hallways. As I neared the large doors leading to the exterior courtyard, I heard a low growl that I began to panic. I wanted to turn back, but curiosity pushed me forward. As I strained to hear the source of the sound, it came again, closer this time, accompanied by the patting of powerful paws that I spun around, looking for a weapon, anything to defend myself. But outside was empty. Just as I began to breathe hard and accept my fate, a massive wolf stood over me. I was paralyzed with fear. I had never experienced anything like this under Derek's cruelty. I was rooted to the spot. I cried and begged for mercy, but the wolf didn't listen, and there was no one to hear me, no one to save me. The wolf began to rip my clothes off me until I was completely naked. Then the most absurd thing happened. Open your legs. The wolf commanded me that I had to comply, for the sake of my life. I opened my legs until he could see every corner. I was scared, panting as he took in the sight of my vagina. Just when I thought it couldn't get any more shocking, the wolf shifted. It was Arden.